That's right, everybody. It is the Halloween edition of the Squatchers Lounge podcast. What better place to go than Ontario, Canada? That's right. We're going to take a look at the official Bigfoot reports out of the Great White North. Or is it the Red North? I don't know. It depends on who you talk to. A little bit of news tonight. Some extra stories from the Canadian area. A new quasi theory, and an old quasi theory, and the new camping tips for stupids. That's right. Welcome everybody to the Squatchers Lounge podcast. That's right. It is Halloween week. We will not have another show before Halloween, and this shall do it. So we are here, you are there, and that makes this whole thing awesome. Yeah, life really kind of got in the way today. Sorry for the late notice of the show, but as usual, we are here 8 p.m. Wednesdays. That's right. The Squatchers Lounge podcast. All right, so let's get this newsy stuff out of the way here really, really quick. There we go. There's actually there's not very much this week. There's just a few things that I wanted to bring to our attention, but one of them's kind of important. So we're going to spend most of the newsy time on that particular article. So let me get my links up here for you, and we can talk about it just a moment. That's right. Hey, Fox, Montana says the world's largest Bigfoot museum is being built in Montana. That's right. In Glacier National Park, the world's largest Bigfoot museum is being built right here. The museum will be in East Glacier and will also be part of the 100-plus room hotel. That's right. They're building a Bigfoot museum, and the hotel is expected to be a $25 million project. Why ask for billions when you can make millions? And most of the artifacts in the museum are worth over $50,000 each. Interesting. Tom Biscardi, President and Chief Executive Officer of Bigfoot Investments Incorporated, has partnered up with Bill and Carol Stewart, who own the Dancing Bears Inn in the center of East Glacier. Biscardi said that their goal is to make East Glacier an all-year tourist attraction. He said it's a multi-story hotel that will house only live theater for miles. Then we'll have an award-winning restaurant and lounge. Jesus God in heaven. We can't get away from this guy. If you don't know who Tom Biscardi is, he's the guy who bought the rubber suit from Dick Dyer in 2008 and started the most embarrassing time in Bigfooting. He's reformed a partnership with some people and defrauded them out of some money, or I don't know, conned them out of some money, whatever you want to call it. The hosts and opinions of the opinions of the host and callers may not be the same as the Squatchers Lounge podcast. Anyhow, yeah, seriously, is literally the student of Ivan Marks, the greatest Bigfoot hoaxer of all times. And now these people are going to partner up with him to give him the biggest Bigfoot museum in the world, plus $50,000 artifacts. The hell artifacts is he talking about that are worth $50,000? Your entire company isn't worth $50,000, chump. We've seen the paperwork. Steve calls the detective, goes out on a limb and puts them out there every quarter. You want to see it? Just go over to the Squatch Detective website. It's all up there. So if your entire business isn't worth $50,000, please tell me how the artifacts of the museum are going to be worth over $50,000 each. Can I see some appraisals on that? Is there any way of proving that those articles are worth that, or is that just what you say it is? Because I know a dude in Washington who's got a 3-foot turd in a veneered box with a glass cover on it that has from a Bigfoot god. I think he's got you in check. I wonder how much that's worth. Okay, speaking of not jackasses, we talked about this one a little bit last week, but now National Geographic has brought up the attention. So go away, don't go away, mad, just go the F away. I hate these kind of things on pages. I really do. The ancient teeth found in Europe belong to a mystery primate. Despite the claims of new origin for humans, the fossils more likely belong to a very distant branch of the primate family tree. Researchers that found that tooth were like, oh, these are human. Look at them. They got to be. Well, chances are not really. The well-preserved from the sediments in Germany offer intriguing clues into how some of our distant primate relatives eked out a living in what is now the northern European area. But do these teeth, as many news outlets proclaim, rewrite human history? Nope. Sorry, folks. It surely doesn't. So one of our cousins made it there. Don't really know what happened to him after that. We'll have to figure all that stuff out later. But as we said last week, the story changes until they really figure it out. Tonight in the news, a Bigfoot documentary so significant, experts believe it could be proven in a court of law that Sasquatch exists. Seriously? October 24th, this was just released. I don't know of any actual evidence that would stand up in a court of law besides the 1967 footage taken in Bluff Creek that's been stabilized enough to actually see what it is. However, Forest Hill, California, October 24th. In Washington State, Alberta, and British Columbia, Canada, a group of respected scientists, including wildlife biologists, wilderness experts, and police forensic officers, intend to prove by a preponderance of clear and convincing evidence and beyond any reasonable doubt that the species commonly referred to as Sasquatch or Bigfoot exists in the wild. A growing group of independent researchers working towards definitive proof and protection that the species commonly known as Bigfoot are pleased to announce the launch of Discovering Bigfoot, a documentary that showcases new crystal clear video evidence of Bigfoot, as well as a PhD's eyewitness account. Wait a minute. I'm starting to smell some bullshit. Discovering Bigfoot is the first feature film documentary with real live interaction between Bigfoot creature, wilderness experts, PhDs, and other world-renowned experts and researchers of the Bigfoot enigma. In it, Todd Standing. Sorry, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. Ventures into the heart of Sasquatch country to obtain never-be-seen-before footage of Sasquatch encounters. I can't read any more of this. I feel stupider about a moment, so I'm just going to stop right there. If you don't know who Todd Standing is, just put in a little search box right there in my channel. Todd, fraud, Standing, Bigfoot North. Any of those terms. Do a little search. Do a little watch. You'll become educated on who one of the biggest frauds in Bigfooting is. We call them, what was it, Winky and Non-Blinky. One literally looks like a Michael Jackson in the friggin' tree line, and the other one doesn't move while he repositions his camera 7 times. It's the same old Sylvania Bigfoot documentary crap. However, I did watch the trailer. I was just intrigued. I had to know what doctors and PhDs, of course, Bender Nagel, who is now, probably a dementia patient. I mean, he's way out there. He's so old, he just wants to believe anybody at this friggin' point. I did see the Meldrum. Oh, seriously. I saw the Meldrum in this documentary, which means he took more of Todd Standing's money. But still won't come out in public and stand behind any of this footage. I seriously want to know who is backing up this footage. I've heard nobody. Who out there? Has anybody out there? Please, I'm asking you if you know. I need some links. I need some actual video evidence on YouTube, a radio interview from any legitimate person who has ever said, yes, Todd Standing by far has the best Bigfoot video evidence of all time, and I stand behind it. Those are real creatures. Find it for me. You people out there that call me idiots because I say Todd Standing's a fraud and a fake and a bunch of shit, prove it to me. Here's your opportunity, okay? Go find credible people. Barney, who lives in Alberta, who's, related to Todd, doesn't count. Find me some audio where the man Meldrum has taken the dude's money. Show me one stitch of audio or video where Meldrum has ever stood behind any of the evidence that Todd Standing has brought to the table. And I'll consider making a different approach to this. But until then, Seriously, people. And on tonight's Canada special, that's exactly the place we're going to leave it. Todd Standing is just a Canadian embarrassment, but we love Canada. Blame Canada. No, don't blame Canada. No, seriously. I don't understand who gives this man money, where he gets the money to be able to do all of this stuff. He's claiming Survivor Man backs him up, who's gone out twice 2 times now and had interactions with real live Bigfoot. Thanks to Squatchy Inc., our boy Wes. That's right, my past co-host on a couple of shows. He pinned me in that the old Standing boy has been posting pretty much non-stop on his YouTube channel. I guess things aren't working out with Les Stroud's streaming channel. I guess the 24-hour Bigfoot of Todd the Fraud isn't going so well. So now they've developed some money into other places. I mean, look, I understand. Todd wants to be an entertainer. Les is an entertainer. Good for them. But Meldrum's a scientist. And unless you're going to come forward, Dr. Meldrum, and say that you stand behind Todd Standing's evidence, something you have never done in public, for all I know, nothing you've ever done in private, and you continue to take his money to be involved in his nonsense, I'm going to continue to call you on it. I don't care how many children you have to put through college. To be a shitheel is unforgivable in my book. It really, really is. You know how despised the man is in the community. You know how much damage his fraudulent videos have brought us. And yet, here you are, again, working hand in hand with the great fraud to Todd Standing. So that's my opinion on the matter. Might have read it on the internet. I don't know. It might not even been my opinion. Who knows? Maybe somebody else convinced me of this. I doubt it. Pretty sure I made up my own. Anyhow, with that, people, it is time to get into a little bit of quasi. That's right. That was the news. I'm just sick to death of seeing Todd Standing get money for documentaries and movies and this and that, and deals for other crap, when we don't even have money for real research. That's just one of the most infuriating things about watching all this go on, is just the simple fact that all this wasted money on crap that isn't real could be spent on something that proves it is real. Think about that for a moment. Anyhow, and with that, it is time for our quasi theory of the week. Goblins, their haunts and habits. And now, quasi theories from a quasi scientist with your host, Dean Cooper.
Goblins, their habits and haunts. From Wikipedia, the source we can all quote from and not get sued. A goblin is a monstrous creature from European folklore, first attested in stories from the Middle Ages. They are ascribed various and conflicting abilities, temperaments, and appearances, depending on the story and country of origin. They are almost always small and grotesque, mischievous or outright evil, and greedy, especially for gold and jewelry. They often have magical abilities similar to a fairy or demon. Similar creatures include brownies, dwarves, gnomes, imps, and kobolds. Whoever wrote this obviously had no real experience with goblins. For that, we must go to primary sources. These sources do not include J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien used the term goblin in The Hobbit. He later wished that he used the word orc, which is not the same creature as a goblin. No, we need to go to someone who has accurately described goblin behavior and appearances. That would be James Whitcomb Riley. He's been dead long enough that I may quote him liberally, like unto Wikipedia, with no ensuing legal consequences. So here goes. Little orphan Annies come to our house to stay, and wash the cups and saucers up and brush the crumbs away, and shoo the chickens off the porch, and dust the hearth and sweep, and make the fire and bake the bread, and earn her board and keep. And all us other children, when the supper things is done, we sit around the kitchen fire and has the mostest fun, a listening to the witch tales that Annie tells us about, and the goblins that'll get you if you don't watch out. Was a little boy who wouldn't say his prayers, and when he went to bed at night away upstairs, his mammy heard him holler, and his daddy heard him bawl, and when they turned the covers down, he wasn't there at all. And they seeked him in the rafter room and cubby hole and press, and seeked him up the chimbley flue and everywheres, I guess. But all they ever found was his pants and roundabout, and the goblins will get you if you don't watch out. And one time a little girl would always laugh and grin and make fun of everyone, all her blood and kin. And once when there was company and old folks was there, she mocked them and shocked them and said she didn't care. And this, as she kicked her heels and turned to run and hide, there was two great big black things a-standing by her side, and they snatched her through the ceiling, for she knowed what she is about. And the goblins will get you if you don't watch out. And little orphan Annie says when the blaze is blue, and the lamp wick sputters, and the wind goes woo, and you hear the crickets quit, and the moon is gray, and the lightning bugs and dew is all squinched away, you better mind your parents and your teachers fond and dear, and cherish them that loves you, and dry the orphan's tear, and help the poor and needy ones that clusters all about, or the goblins will get you if you don't watch out. From my own experience, you can catch one at a properly baited snare utilizing locally caught free-range naughty children. They have a nice pelt and they taste like chicken. The goblins, that is. Don't eat the children. You can sell their leftover bits to the wicked witch down the street, thereby destroying the evidence. This has been Dean Cooper, quasi-scientist, enlightening you with my quasi-theory of the week. You may read the text of this on my blog at bhaidin.com. That's BHAIDIN.com.
Amazing Halloween quasi from the crate. Dean Cooper. That's right. Love it. Absolutely love it. It's the way they all are. Goblins. Yeah. Right here on the Squatchers Lounge podcast. Yeah, I know. It ain't Bigfoot, but it is paranormal, whatever paranormal actually is, I guess. Hey, speaking of things that are paranormal, it is definitely time for Gone Camping Channel's Camping Tips for Stupids with a special Canada edition. That's right. That's all I know about it. It's a special Canada edition from our guy there at Gone Camping, Jevin Moore. I was going to call you Jevin Brown for some reason. I have no clue why, but that probably wouldn't have worked out so well. With that, okay, let's give her a share and a listen. That's right, Gone Camping.
Tips for hosers. Tip number 52, eh? So this would be like the Canadian edition, eh? Oh, and it's not like this is being sponsored by any like beer companies, but so like if I figured that if I mention them, they would like maybe send over some free samples, eh? And be like, hey, thanks for like mentioning me, eh? So yeah, here's some beer stuff. So good day, eh? So you're like camping out in the upper Klondike, eh? And you're setting up your campsite, and you got your campfire set up, and you know you got your tent all pitched and stuff. And then when it's all done, like the stupid hoser door is on the wrong side of the damn tent, eh? Because if you're like me, you want the tent facing the campfire, eh? And so it's not. And well, that's like a problem with the manufacturer, eh? It's really hit or miss with tents. They just don't make them like they used to, eh? So one thing I found you can do is like get a knife and make a new door, eh? One that faces a campfire. But then you get the problem of getting rain or snow in your tent, and then you're like, no way. So be careful with the quality of your tents you get, eh? So, like, you got your campsite all set up, eh? But you still need to figure out where to put all that beer, eh? Well, one easy trick is to like just get a beer truck, and just store all the beer in that, because it's like portable that way, And don't worry about like needing one that's refrigerated or nothing. Just leave the back door open, And if any hosers from other campsites come over and try to take some of your beer, just tell them to take off. Just take off. But if they want to store their beer in the truck too, then okay. Okay, so you're out on the river trying to do your fly fishing, And a big hoser moose comes out of the bushes right by you and stares. So you're like, what do you do? Well, one trick I learned is that moose are intimidated by anything with bigger antlers than what they got, So one trick I did was like take a bike, and all I did was just duct tape my snowshoes to it, So they look like big antlers. And so you put that on your head and look back at the moose, And the moose will see you and be like, no way, and take off. It's been camping tips for hosers. Remember to bring enough beer,
You're my man. Oh. Camping tips for hosers, that is just funny stuff. I'm sorry. I am not one of those politically correct people, so forgive me. Let's give some shout outs here to the people that are hanging out in the live Squatchers Lounge podcast chat tonight. That's right. You can find us Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific, right here, youtube.com/S Lounge Podcast. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/S Lounge Podcast. And on the Twitterverse, I guess you can guess. That's right, at S Lounge Podcast. Let's see who's out there tonight. Look at that. It is Mr. Rod Dupree. He's always in the place to be. That's right. Official Eldorado Bigfoot Watch member number 3. Let's see who else is out there tonight. Tyrone Green is in the house. Squatchy Inc. What's to remind me of Bye Bye Man. Yeah, I remember. Starshine, that's right, our Canadian expert. She's swinging her tool out there tonight, as well as Mr. Dean Cooper, the quasi-scientist. There is James the Grower. He is official Eldorado Bigfoot member number 4. The wipe is number 5. That's right. Now, batting third, playing center field, Mr. Kurt Harris. That's right. He's hanging out with us tonight. Join us tomorrow afternoon at 5 in the afternoon in Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern for Vinyl Power. That's right. Vinyl records at their best. Kitten. Oh, God. How do I keep getting that? Hey, again, how you doing? Glad you're still out there. Oreo cream rocks. It absolutely does. Gone camping's floating around in the house tonight, as well as always an adventure. Luna. I saw the video of you guys up there on the peak from last year. That was, or the pictures. That was pretty cool. Thanks for being out there tonight. Sam Squanch Rivera. He's hanging out, as well as Lance Windsor, another one of our Canadian residents. How you doing there, pal? Glad you are with us. Brown Dwarf is in the house. Mary S., she changed your name from Mama Renee. Glad you are back as well. Jonathan Doughty, glad you are flying around with us tonight. Hope you're feeling well. Jay Gerd is in the house. How you doing there, sir? Natalie Smith, I'm so glad you're here with us as well. There's a lot of people in here tonight. I am so happy about that. I really am. I'm glad you guys come and chat and do all those good things. I know that Huck Outdoors is floating around out there, Squatch Box and Christopher. I'm sure they are flying and floating around out there, causing all kind of trouble. Hello. Swan Pond 50849 looks like another Canadian resident. So glad you are with us as well. I know there's more. Yes, the 50th anniversary of the PG film was last weekend, and I saw it. It was not all that great of a turnout for that thing. $50 a ticket might have had something to do with that. Anyhow, there is Dean. Oh, Ronnie. That's right. We see him stop in from time to time. Could be a chick because it's Ronnie. I don't know. I'm not one of those people. Stephen Bridges is in the house. That's right. I see more people. Boom, 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 boom. I'm sorry. I'm having one of those nights today. I really, really am. Getting towards the top here. Robles, how you doing? I'm glad you're floating around there. I know there's more than that. Tyrone Green, I think I said your name way down the bottom, but if I didn't, I did now. Jeremy Harrison is also in the house. There's the old Huck Outdoors. I knew he was out there somewhere. He likes to go to the gym and listen. It's kind of weird. Does the Reverend do it for you? Do you need some, you get the HGH kick in when you're listening to the Rev? If so, more power to you. John Briers, Kevin K, how you fellas doing? Glad you are out there tonight as well. I know there's more. If you guys were up above that, you better put something in the bottom where I won't know you're here. Because it really does kind of get that way quick. I saw something about a spunkin' pumpkin. What? I'm not sure where that. Oh, sugar pumpkin with cinnamon. I don't know what that is. Oh, that's Oreo cream giving out giving out recipes in the chat room. You never know what you're going to find out around here. I think we're daggone near the top here. And that would probably be everyone I can get to there. Let's check back down at the bottom and make sure we didn't miss anybody, and we can get on to our official Canadian forest crabs. People call me Forest Crabs. I'm so glad you're with us as well. He is here tonight. I'm going to scroll up just a little bit to make sure I didn't miss anybody else. And I think that looks like everyone. Brian Hunter, right under the gun. I finally saw your name too. So there you go. That's right. It is Canadian Bigfoot. We're talking specifically tonight about Ontario, and we're actually only going to cover the early years. Ontario is literally one of the largest number of reported Sasquatch sightings in all of Canada. So I figured we would start there. And this particular area literally has dozens. So I grabbed the oldest ones I could, and we will take a look at those tonight. So we're looking at the area above Minnesota, Wisconsin, Chicago, Michigan, Detroit, Toronto, Ottawa is the kind of the edges of this. There's a lot of wild territory there at the border. That's a giant mountain system that people don't really want to talk about there in Minnesota so much. But that's basically the area that we're talking about tonight. Let's see what kind of sightings they had reported in the early years right here out of Ontario, Canada. And then some of these are really interesting because they're actually really early on. Like this one here is from 1958. Now, this would be the same year that Jerry Crew found the first Bigfoot tracks down in that Bluff Creek Basin. Fall December of 1958. Near Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada, near Queen Street. My sighting of suspicious tracks, I remember it was a Sunday morning near noon. I was the first one out of the house and was on my way to the airport restaurant, which used to be our hangout. I was heading west on Queen Street and had just passed Sifton Avenue and crossed over a large drainage when I noticed these extraordinarily large footprints in the snow on my left. There was a vacant field there where we would play ball in the summertime. Now it was covered with about 6 inches of snow. These footprints were about 18 inches long and 7 inches wide, with a stride near 4 feet long. The 5 toe prints on each foot were very clearly visible. They were heading in a southwesterly direction towards Roslyn Road, bordered by the CNR railway tracks to the left of the airport and right. Fortunately, no one else was with me at the time. I thought of notifying the police or some other authority of this sighting, but since I was a youngster, I did not think anyone would take my story seriously. About a year or two later, I heard of a similar sighting near a small community about 150 miles north of Thunder Bay called Armstrong, of something they called Bigfoot on a news bulletin. This was the first time I had heard of such the thing called Bigfoot, and brought back the memories of what I had seen. So there you go. I mean, the guy didn't even know what a Bigfoot was, and didn't even call it a Bigfoot until after somebody else has seen some tracks and put that name to it. Why? Because it wasn't coined until after 1958. See how that works? Kind of a credible story. 1964, man recalls a nighttime roadside sighting near Markdale, Ontario, the intersection of Route 12 and West Backline at Barhead. I was in my early teens riding in the backseat of our family car coming from my dad's cousin's farm. Both my parents were in the front seat, and as we rolled a curve on the gravel road, the car headlights shone some lateral light to the sides. I was looking out the right rear window and saw standing up on an embankment at the tree line a tall, fur-covered creature. The roadside embankment went up about 10 feet, and as our car passed, I turned around to look out the rear window at the thing, and it was now walking down the embankment. It stopped and stood at the edge of the road. I could see it clearly in the backlights and some light coming from a lodge across the road as my dad slowed to a stop at a stop sign about 300 feet from the creature. My parents to turn around, but they just doubted my sighting and drove on. It was at the closest about 35 feet from the car. I am now 100% convinced that this was a Sasquatch. As one, bears don't walk down embankments on its hind legs. Two, few men are 7 feet tall. And if this was a man in a monkey suit, why would it try not to be seen by us as we passed? I agree. They wouldn't try to avoid being seen if they're out there hoaxing people. All right, moving right along here. 1978, motorists have a nighttime sighting near Grimsby. That's right, near Park Road. In July of 1978, my then boyfriend and I were out on an evening drive up the escarpment, whatever the heck that is. It was about 9:30 p.m., and the sun, I had recalled, gone down because we were using the headlights. We were leisurely driving along. Don't really recall being engaged in a conversation at that moment because we were both looking ahead in front of us. All of a sudden, this thing just ran across the road in front of our car. My boyfriend had to slam on the brakes, otherwise we would have hit it dead on. We swerved and missed it by about 6 inches and almost ended up in a ditch. As soon as the car came to a complete stop, we just looked at each other in total disbelief and said, "Oh, what was that?" As stupid as this might sound, this thing was a Bigfoot. No other way to describe it. As it ran across the road, it turned to its left and looked directly at us. And as the car swerved, it ran into the forest. I mean, we got a clear view of it. This thing was right in front of us, running across the road. That's when you almost hit these things, it's like a Harry and the Henderson moment. What was that? And then you realize, well, it weren't no bear. And then you got to realize, well, what do I do now? Because especially if you hit it, it's still laying there. Do you want it to suffer? I don't know. I'm cutting off a pinky at least. I'm getting proof. 1986 in the September fall time. That's right. We are near teens as they watch. Teen watches as sitting Bigfoot eats blueberries. Now, this is my kind of story. Southeast of Kirkland Lake, take Harvey Kirkland Road to the dead end. Yada, 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 yada. It was the summer of 1975 in the early morning hours, probably about 8:30 or so. My mother and I were walking along Government Road between Sheppet Hughes and Kirkland Lake. In the distance, probably about 100 yards away, for only a few seconds, I seen what appeared to be a hair-covered creature that was walking in an upright position along a swampy area on the west side of town. By the time I got my mother's attention, the creature had vanished into the woods. The second sighting was more intense because it was after I had done a public speaking report about what I had seen the first time. It was in the late afternoon of September in 1986, 11 years later. While I was out rabbit hunting, I had been in the bush all day about 7 a.m. As I was en route for home about 3 miles southeast of town, walking along a trail, I seen something out of the corner of my eye, which, until I had turned my head, looked and focused my eyes in the slowly darkening bush, thought was a bear. The reason I thought it was a bear was because I was able to smell it. At the time, I thought it was strange, but it actually smelled worse than a bear, like 10 times worse. When I realized what I was seeing, I instantly crouched out of view, but still in a position to view the amazing creature. Round in a yoga-style, cross-legged position, smack dab in the middle of a blueberry patch. It was just sitting there, grazing the berries with its hands and having an afternoon snack. It seemed to be content with the surroundings it was in. It had a massive body that would probably only be comparable to Andre the Giant, maybe even bigger. It was completely covered with hair except for the area around its breasts, which appeared to resemble a dark, leathery texture. The face of the creature was not masked with hair. It resembled the face of a gorilla in texture and color, but had the features of an early evolutionary man. As I sat there watching from about 12 yards away, I had considered raising my gun and taking a shot. I opted against that because I have morals and was unsure if it was more than a man. It was an animal. Plus, I didn't want to take a chance of missing or wounding it. I only had a single shot 22 bolt action, and if it chose to attack in retaliation, I would not have time to reload. I watched for about 10 minutes, then I had to reveal myself, for it was starting to get dark. And not because of Bigfoot, because you don't want to be in the bush of northern Ontario, even if you know where you are and you are going after dark. When the creature saw me, it did not respond in the way I had expected. It simply stood without using the use of its hands and calmly walked away. I like that one actually a whole lot. I mean, there's enough description there of somebody who would have actually paid enough attention to see how something was sitting there. I would expect that, yeah, that's how a Sasquatch would do it, man. He would roll right up and just kind of crash down in the middle of that bush and just sit there and feast until his belly was full. I really do dig that one. I've never read that one before. It's pretty cool. Moving up in time here to 1990. A morning encounter with a moose hunter in northern Ontario. That's right. Nearest road was Highway 105 and Dixie Lake Road. We had driven into a small trail that I had not been on before from a road that we hunted regularly. The main road was called Dixie Lake Road, and I don't know if the trail had a proper name or not. We were about 2 kilometers from the trail, from the main road, when my friend slowed his bike, four-wheeler, ATV, or quad, whatever, down. I pulled alongside him, and he said this was the area where he had saw a bull a couple of months prior. I told him I was going to stop and have a snack on this straight stretch of trail. He said he was going to ride on ahead to the end of the trail, which was only about another kilometer or so ahead. My friend rode off and ahead towards the end of the trail. He was still close enough that I could hear his bike revving in the distance, and I could see about 200 meters up the trail, about 75 meters back down the trail from where we came in. I only heard a noise ahead about 75 meters to the right of the trail. This was right where my friend had just ridden past not more than 2 minutes prior. The sound was brush moving, and I could even make out what sounded to me like the thud of footsteps over the sound of my friend's bike in the distance. At this time, I stood up and put my sandwich down on the seat of my bike and started retrieving my 30-06 from the case on the back. At the time, I was keeping an eye on the area, and I was hearing the noise from. I had my gun case open and I was just about to pick up my rifle when, for no reason, I just kind of froze and waited and watched. I fully expected to see a moose or a bear come out of the bush on the side of the road. I knew by the commotion that it was going to be a fair-sized animal. I remembered thinking to myself, just wait to see what it is before you pick up your gun. Suddenly, the noises stopped completely for about 5 seconds. Then I saw it. Initially, I thought what I was seeing was another hunter. That feeling soon went away. It was definitely human-looking, but not quite. I'll always remember my initial reaction. I initially said to myself, this jackass is going to get himself blown away walking through the woods dressed in black like that. Within about 2 seconds, I realized I could not possibly be looking at a man. What this was took a couple of steps out of the bush onto my right, onto the main trail, stopped, looked away from me towards the area my friend had just ridden to. All I remember seeing was a massive back and very muscular arms, a little point of head, and behind and wispy black hair swaying in the breeze off the arms. I knew for sure at this point I was not looking at a bear, nor was this a moose or a man. It then turned in my direction and looked right at me. It almost looked surprised to see me. I remember feeling a chill, for lack of a better word, coming over me and really realizing that what I am seeing was absolutely extraordinary. Amazing enough, I still do not have my gun in my hand. The case was open and it was just sitting there on the back of my bike. I was in absolute awe at what I was looking at. The creature kind of sniffed, then cocked his head back, gave a couple of more sniffs, and then a snort of a grunt. It then calmly turned in the direction that it was originally going and stepped into the ditch, then across the little blueberry meadow and into the thick bush, all the time walking on 2 legs, making no noise whatsoever. I remember trying to rationalize what I was seeing, saying to myself, this has got to be some crazy old Indian who is like homeless or something living in the bush. But nothing I could say to myself was making sense. Wow, that's another really, really cool story, because that's the type of encounter you would expect to be. I mean, it's believable. I mean, it's not some kind of, or stepped through a magical portal and then solved my kidney, my bladder infection by playing with my weenie and then moved off into its warp zone again. I mean, God bless it. I love this kind of story. This one really, really is fun. Okay, last one of the night, people. That's right. That's where we are at. We will be revisiting Ontario. That is for sure. 1993 in a springtime encounter. That's right. A man and his girlfriend at the time were parked along McLeod Road, a gravel road that parallels the south shore of the Madawaska River. There you go. Best I could do with it. They had left a friend's place earlier in the morning after a party and had chosen to park for a while. The car was backed into an entrance of an old logging trail off the main road. The couple remembers noticing a foul stench in the air, like a sewer backed up or rotten meat. At 6:30 a.m., witnesses left the car, leaving his driver's side door open, and walked beyond the rear of the car to urinate. He had a small noise to his left and turned to see a large, black, hairy creature standing upright only 30 feet from him. The creature, which the witnesses felt right away was a Sasquatch, just stood there motionless while he finished urinating on his way back to the car. He called to his girlfriend, "My God, look at this! Get out! Get out of the car! You got to see this!" He remained at the car and watched the creature for what seemed like a few minutes as it simply checked us out. The creature finally turned and took 10 or 15 strides back into the bush and got behind some cover. Witnesses said its arms swung as it was silent as it walked upright into the woods. It didn't take long for it to get a fair distance. I could still see it between the trees and some leaves where it stopped. It turned around again to face them, watched them a bit more, and finally fled. The witnesses then left the scene, shaken and stunned. They did not speak of it until near day's end. Wow, that's a real nice way to wrap up the Ontario, Canada Bigfoot sightings this week. We've gotten all the way up to the 90s. A lot of good stories. I mean, literally, there's still another couple of, there's at least another good dozen stories there that we'll be able to share another time. Look at that. We are already at the end of this mess. I want to thank all of you guys out there for being here. Season 5, and we're coming to a close. You know, Christmas time will be here, and we'll be on to season 6. And I kind of want to take some suggestions from you guys out there. Would you like to see the seasons of encounters continue? I'd love to know if you guys like this format. If you like this format, there are tons more encounters and sightings out there to be. So leave a comment in the comment box. Leave a comment out there in the chat box, and I'll know for sure whether or not to continue on with the seasons of encounter. Hello there, Mr. JMD. I'm glad you have joined us. I see that there's II Entertainment as well. Came in a little late to the show. So glad you guys are there. Thank you for the donation, Leanne. I appreciate that like a whole lot. There's Michael Bird as well. I'm glad you are there as well. Winter Fix showed up late. I didn't want to miss anybody out there as well. Let's see, is there anybody else? I think I got everybody chimed in. I'm going to have an after hangout here in just a few, so enjoy this Bigfoot campfire story, and we will see you guys next week right here for the November 1st edition of the Squatchers Lounge podcast. Give me a suggestion in the chat box of where you'd like to see us go next week, and I will do my research and bring it to you guys. That's right. Thanks so much for being here, and may the Squatch be with you. That's right. Little Men in Black and UFO Bigfoot tonight. Let's get a little weird. What the hell is that? I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that was a Bigfoot. Let me tell you a story. Well, after a short hiatus, old Reverend Jeff here is glad to be back with the Bigfoot campfire stories. Now, this story was told to me by a gentleman named John Smith. As much as I'd like to believe that was his real name, the black suit and matching sunglasses tend to make me think a little different. Now, he claimed to have witnessed definitive proof that Bigfoot and aliens exist. That's why I had to retell this story. I was assigned to monitor a group of what we suspected to be a militia group working high in the Rocky Mountains. There had been reports to local law enforcement of glowing lights and machine activity in locations that humans rarely found, but pictures and videos of obvious man-made clearings were evident in the region, so we were sent in to investigate. We were dropped in with our gear by helicopter before the break of day, and we were sent to a predetermined, secluded area to set up camp not far from the located area. For the first couple of nights, nothing much outside of odd animal noises were noticed by anyone in the camp. But on the third night, all of that changed. A sentry reported a glowing green light coming from a forest about 5 clicks outside of camp. We geared up to check it out. Our recon position had eyes on the light but could not determine what was making it, so we went on through the tree line to continue on our path to intercept it. Just as we cleared the last ridge to what would be the light, it literally ascended so quickly that no one could see what it was before it was out of sight. We rushed the area where the light had been, only to find it completely void of anything, including vegetation. So we backed out and set up camp for the night. The next morning, we did a grid search of the site, and many of us kept finding these overly large human-like bare footprints all around where the light had been, leading in all directions into the forest. We searched and searched for the tracks leading to the site, but not a single print could be found. It was as if the prints all came out of the light and then disappeared into the forest. We collected as much evidence as we could. We packed them up and then went back to camp. What we witnessed must have been like winning the lottery, but we had to wait it out to see. For weeks, we stood a visual watch on the area looking for more lights and more evidence, but without any luck at all. Finally, we had been called back to HQ and been reassigned once again. That was the last of my exposure to what you call Bigfoot, but I can tell you for sure, no man made those tracks, and that light ball was not from this planet either. Well, it seems that this story bothered John so much he just had to get it off his chest. It just goes to show you when we think we have all the answers, sometimes the questions change. Thanks for listening. I'm Reverend Jeff. May the Squatch be with you. And a final shout out to the Reverend Matthew Gaines and B Mac. I just noticed you guys had checked in as well. You're welcome, Star. This one was definitely for you, and I will take your suggestions into consideration for next week. Thanks, everybody, for being here, and may the Squatch be with you.